Hello, Morgan. Hello.
Hi, everyone.
Good afternoon.
It's morning for us. Can I share my screen?
Hello, Mr. Morgan. How are you?
Good, thanks. How's everyone doing?
Yeah, you want to share your screen? Yeah.
Yeah. Let me Okay. Shared screen has been disabled.
Yeah, you can share now.
Okay, sure. Let me just run my presentation. Oh dear.
Eben, your voice is muted. Oh,
Hello.
Yeah, now it's good. Yeah.
So, Dinesh, you can give a brief on AIC RAISE, then we can start the presentation.
Of course. Yeah, I'm just doing it. Just waiting for another 1-2 minutes. So participants are joining in.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So good evening, everyone. Very happy to have you all with us today for AIC RAISE's SDG Impact Series. To add about AIC, I'm Dinesh Manikam. I'm Incubation Manager of AIC RAISE Startup Incubation Center. AIC RAISE is a startup incubation center located in Coimbatore, established under Atal Innovation Mission of Mission Scheme of NITI Aayog, Govt of India. So we have a key focus area of supporting startups working around United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, because we believe in nurturing startups that not only generates a revenue model, but also creates a better impact model so that we all together can build a better world together for the future generation. And we can make the entire world a better place for living. So we have 40 plus startups currently in our startup incubation program, to whom we are bringing in various support systems like connecting them with industry experts and mentors, providing them various capacity building programs, trainings and workshops, providing them various network connects and market access connects, and also supporting them to raise seed funds and investment support through our investment forums. Within a span of 9 months, our startups have altogether raised a seed fund and investment of about 400K USD from national and international investment forums. Our startups have won Canada-based Energia Accelerator Program. Our startups have won Tamil Nadu Innovation Grand Challenge. Our startups have won Tamil Nadu EDI IVP program. And within this span of 9 months, we have conducted more than 65 plus startup-centric events, activities, trainings, and workshops, touching more than 2 lakh plus lives through our programs, through our startup activities. And as we have a key focus area of supporting startups, supporting activities, organizing activities oriented towards sustainable development goals, we have conducted several programs and trainings around SDGs earlier. And with that as a focus, we have organized today's event on role and importance of entrepreneurship in achieving sustainable development goals, for which we have an amazing speaker with us, who is a leading professional speaker, personal trainer, martial artist, and deep lover of SDG goals. So with a keen interest in technology and ICT, he has stronger experience in helping companies to achieve three fundamental objectives, which are growing their business, optimizing their operations, and protecting their digital assets. He has facilitated various activities, events, and workshops in Middle East, in Africa, and he has been featured in various ICT media news. And he is a recognized conference and public speaker to educators, nonprofits, businesses, and corporations. Beyond that, the thing which I'm very much fascinated about our today's speaker is that he is a person who focuses on strengthening the core both internally and externally. As he is a martial artist with 25 years of experience, with 3 black belts in 3 different karate styles, and he is a full-time trainer of karate, Kyokushin karate, and physical and mental wellness. So, welcoming Mr. Mohan Naidu to the session, and we are very pleased to have you with us today, and looking forward to receive more vibrance and energy from your session. Over to you, Mr. Mohan.
Great stuff. Thanks, Rathinam. Yeah, that was a great introduction. Yeah, I'm glad to be here, and thanks for having me. And I'll guess I'll start with the SDGs. I did receive some excellent questions from most of the entrepreneurs that Dinesh sent across, and I believe my presentation will actually address some of those questions, but I'm looking forward to actually answer them in terms of relating it to the SDG goals. So as Rathinam says, I am Mohan Naidu, and I'm the venture coach for Alan Gray Orbis Foundation, and I'm a managing director at Kina Group and 360 Networks, amongst other things. So in terms of today's topic, as I will be talking around the role and importance of entrepreneurship achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. So just briefly, today's talk, I'd love to start off with giving my story. I want to share the story of why I'm so passionate about SDGs and how I came to this situation in terms of the last 4 or 5 years. I will also then talk around bringing the SDGs to life and looking at understanding what the SDGs are. This is for those who I'm aware that there are experts and such and entrepreneurs are familiar with this. But for those who are not too familiar with SDGs, I'll just give a nice light overview on the SDG goals and what's its purpose. And I would like the key also is just looking at the shift in changes in business. In the light of the recent times, businesses are actually shifting to more societal impacts. And I will talk around the core of today's topic is the importance of entrepreneurship and driving that, going into the social impact of entrepreneurship and the key differences there. Looking at the business drivers in terms of entrepreneurship, what is driving the entrepreneurship in terms of the Sustainable Development Goals, and looking at the role of government. How can governments then assist in getting this formulated in terms of the specific countries. So my story, this is me. I'm, as Rathinam mentioned, I'm the jack of all trades, but I love it. And this is me. This is the entrepreneur in me. I founded 2 companies, which is Kina Group, which is ICT services, and Key 360 Networks, which is a telecoms company. And Q Consulting is an Africa advisory firm. And this was created by a joint venture of through my travels in Africa. And I traveled quite extensively in Africa in terms of looking at various consulting projects and how the African country works. Africa Coin Exchange, I sit on a cryptocurrency on the board of directors for Bitcoin, and we trade in Ethereum. But as going back, to my spirituality, I don't own a Bitcoin. I feel it's too volatile for me, but I love the business aspect around what blockchain as a technology can do. And looking at more the social aspect, Alan Gray Orbis Foundation, love this company and what they're trying to drive from a social impact perspective. And I'll get to the situation right now, and that leverages on my stories, why I'm in this place where I am right now. And Mohan Naidu, that's my brand that I formed, and that's related to more the public speaking and giving back to the community. And as Rathinam says, I own a karate dojo. I do personal training, and I like to have this blend of everything together, having a balance in life. And so half my life is spent on giving back to the community, sustainable companies, looking at problem solving for the whole social impact. And that led me to become nominated as a finalist for the 2019 Men of the Year Awards finalist for entrepreneurship and leadership. I go to community, from a community perspective, I go to schools, I give advice on leadership, on career guidance. And just tying all this in, I've developed a personal maturity model in terms of a purpose and common good, and in terms of where along these lines and this curve that my businesses sit, and from my personal aspect as well. Looking at Africa Coin Exchange, still very early days. We want to venture out, but we don't have that social aspect. Youth consulting, yes, to a certain extent, we are in partnership with the Central African Republic government. We've signed an endorsement letter where we're assisting them with rolling out strategies for FDI, foreign direct investments, to get into the country to help develop. They came out from the war and develop low-cost housing in terms of infrastructure, utilities. Kinner Group and 316 Network Holding that are very heavily involved in corporate social responsibility. From that perspective, we go out and do a lot of events, giving back to the community. We get in interns, we develop students. I've just got for 316 digital marketing strategy graduates to come in and offer the strategy for us and take us through this process. And this is giving back, teaching them how to develop themselves from an education perspective and putting them out there. Again, Naidu, that's my brand, and Alan Gray Orbis Foundation, very high on the maturity curve, very focused on sustainability, giving back to the community, and overall just for the common good and living my purpose. So in the last 5 years, I really transformed myself internally. And this is, I'm exerting this out because I practice servant leadership. It's essentially holding your employees' hands, holding your partner's hand, and going on this journey with them from a societal perspective. It's all about collaboration and working together for the common good. So just I want to touch on the SDG goals as the next on the next slides. Is that I want to bring SDG to life. So when we talk about SDGs, we need to understand where it actually came from. I'm not going to date very far back to the 70s, but when looking at the Millennium Development Goals, which was formulated in the year 2000, this looked at poverty, hunger, disease, illiteracy, environmental degradation, discrimination against women. And these were to combat those. These were the type of goals that the United Nations came together to say, this is what we want to combat from a global perspective. And this was actually discussed at the UN Conference on Sustainable Development in Rio de Janeiro in 2012 as the post-2015 agenda. So come 2015, they felt, yes, review this policy agenda. We go and we make sure that we don't leave anyone behind. This is a global awareness. This is something global that we're taking to the market. And that's how it started. From there, it went to, let's start with eradicating poverty and promoting prosperity. And we can see, like, I'll touch on the SDGs in a bit, in more detail, but looking at, in terms of from the ecosystem, environmental, and then you look at transforming sustainable and resilient societies. And that's also from a ecosystem. When you look back at 2017, it's more the prosperity from an individual perspective and communities, and empowering people. In 2019, they came up with the goals in terms of, let's tackle education, let's create jobs. And that formulated and putting it together by here we are sitting in 2020, where we have 17 goals that we're addressing. And why 17 when there's 16 before that? Is because number 17 is such a key element in terms of partnerships for the goals. Collaboration, key. Entrepreneurship need to be partnering. Governments, public, private partnerships need to formulate in terms of addressing these societal needs. And this is the complete list of the sustainable development goals as it stands. And I just want to share a very quick 3-minute video that really gives a better understanding in terms of, for those who actually don't really fully understand the goal.
Hello world, how would you like to be changed? How can we even ask this? There are so many problems. No one would say the same thing. This is Fernando. He is a little orphan boy from Brazil who lives in slum. He would change the world by making sure everyone has electricity, But his big request is that he be given a chance to make some money so he can change the future for himself and his friends. Tina is working for a supermarket in the UK. She buys vegetables from all over the world and needs a good price so she can stay in business. But she wants to be fair to the farmers she buys from. It makes no sense to her to see so much food thrown away each week. Rani is a little girl in India. She would have a well in her village for clean water. And the road to her school would always be clear. Weather patterns have changed recently, so nobody knows when the floods are coming. Amal is in Somalia. Illegal trawling and chemical pollution in the oceans means he can't catch any fish, so he's got no job. Amal just wants to feed his family again. And Eugenie, she's an old lady from Louisiana, USA. She wants to afford the medicine she needs, but if she really tells the truth, she just wants fairness. Her whole life been unfair because she is a woman and because she's black. How should you change the world? The question our governments have been asking for a long time. They talk and talk and talk for many, many years because, like I said, nobody says the same thing. But then, despite their differences, they did it. They agreed on new goals. They call them the Sustainable Development Goals, and they cover all these things for everyone. 17 goals, 17 dreams, 17 things that they all sign their name to say they agree. These goals aren't big, they are huge. They are ambitious and they are wild. But they are not just the fantasies of a child. This is all the leaders and all the people with the money and power saying, yes, this is possible, this is happening, this is achievable within our lifetime. Our leaders are saying this, but this is our future, so it's our responsibility to make sure it's not just fancy words, that these dreams will become a reality. We've got to hold them to it to make sure we, in all the places we live in, demand they keep their promises. We've got to join together, we've got to make some noise, because this is our future, and it's the one we all want.
Great. So I hope that puts into some perspective. And let's just get on to understanding the SDGs in a bit more detail. And when we look at the SDGs that they brought on, it really focuses on three core elements, right? And if we look at the center Venn diagram, it shows social, economic, and environmental. So when we look at social, it's the people, economic, prosperity, and environmental. But we can't obviously, see that as in isolation, because while that gives us sustainable, it really limits us to a specific, maybe a specific country or a specific individual. But if we tie it in from a partnership perspective, and that relates to goal 17, and for peace, it's goal 16, we have what we call the 5 Ps that was established by the United Nations. And this really encompasses everything together in terms of people being, from healthcare to education and getting to prosperity in terms of everyone living above the minimum wage, and having prosperity from an economic country perspective, and environmental, that we're contributing because there's limited resources that are available, and we need to have our planet sustainable, and then forming the partnerships to put this together, and peace and harmony between all individuals. And basically, this is us. If we have one planet, and we have to call it our home, and this is one home. And when we break this down into the individual goals, we look at the bottom base, which is the biosphere, looking at environmental. And if you look at from a society perspective, it looks at the people, where we look at poverty and peace between everyone, and having the education, healthcare, and eradicating food hunger. And when we look at from an economy perspective, and that's prosperity, when we look at education and we look at infrastructure development. And obviously, finally, we want to encompass this by formulating partnerships, as I just mentioned earlier. So, but the goals are just from a holistic perspective. Those are just very high level, and it gives us a sense of what we need to address. But where the real detail and the crux comes into is to understand the indicators. And this is very essential for understanding the indicators if you want to address a societal need, and if you want to address it from an entrepreneurial perspective and a business perspective. So there are targets. So the targets in each goal are generally range from 8 to 12 targets. And I've listed 3. I've just given an example of 3, which are found from the United Nations, which is no poverty, which is target goal 1, no poverty. Target 1.1, eradicate extreme poverty for all people. And from an indicator perspective, the proportion of population below the international poverty line. When we drill down into the indicator perspective, there are generally 1 to 4 indicator measures that progress towards reaching the targets and ultimately the goals. So essentially, the indicators are there as a measure and reporting to say, how are we doing? How are we meeting these type of goals? And they split between the outcomes and means. So if you look at from a target perspective, it's generally the outcome of the goal, and the means of implementation is generally regarded as 6A or 6B, but just in terms of what frameworks are available and what can be implemented and the means of implementing that a business or individual can bring to the party. And from incorporating this and releasing this out is reported through an integrated report that we release. And that's available from the UN. It's very deep, you can deep dive and deep level into this from a data analysis perspective, and there's raw data that is available for download as well. And you can see from a country level where each country, and this is, and we'll cover this from a mapping perspective when we look at, I know a few entrepreneurs have sent me some questions around mapping. We'll cover that in the question session. But looking at the integrated report, yes, this looks very quite detailed, but essentially what this report says is that we do have what capital do we have? And when I mentioned from looking at your external environment, we all have limited capital, limited availability of capital, and maybe from funding, and it also in terms of from human capital resources. But when we look at from a sustainable development in terms of what an organization or business should achieve, you look at the financial, your manufactured, your intellectual capital, human capital, social and relationship, and your natural capital from your external environment. And this feeds into the reporting structure or your business model in terms of how we input this, what business activities that we are aligned to our strategy as part of our main mission and vision in terms of the companies, and how we're addressing the outputs on that to create value. And from that, you get your outputs and the outcomes that lead to your sustainable development goals that you can see from the colors in terms of where each one actually fits in. But really, the core is in this business model. When we look at it from an entrepreneur perspective and a business perspective, your focus should actually be in what you're feeding in here, but more importantly, what's your business model and your shift, because this business model now is your shift to your vision and mission in terms of how do we shift from a traditional business approach to now focusing more on your sustainability. When we look at this into deep driving, we look at the value creation process, and I touched on your vision and mission and what value you create from a sustainability perspective. And this is really lends itself back to your integrated reporting. And why the integrated reporting is so important is that you can be involved from a reporting perspective on your targets, on your indicators that you're trying to resolve, and feed it to the United Nations and upload it to a repository where this information is available for everyone to make use of this data. So the step one, you need to understand from a reporting perspective and value creation and aligning it from your vision and mission to your sustainable development transformation in terms of capital use, is to understand the sustainable development issues from your external environment. How can we address these issues? And step two, in terms of identifying what issues that influence the value creation and developing a strategy to contribute from there through the business model as I just identified. And in step four, develop an integrated thinking, connectivity and governance in around getting your business model operationally efficient. And then you prepare your report. And this feeds into a detailed report where you essentially you identify the risks, and I'll get into the benefits of actually getting into the report. And that cycle actually goes into a cycle where you continuously, editing the specific business model. When we look at your integrated report and preparing it, the benefits of this is that it helps you from your SDG perspective in terms of mainstream thinking, strategizing, decision-making, and reporting. And this not only influences the SDGs that you're providing information to the Sustainable Development Goals, but it also benefits your business because you can determine what risks are available, what are the opportunities that are posed by Sustainable Development Goals, where can we pivot? Looking at the recent COVID-19 crisis, a lot of companies actually pivoted from their main service offering and identifying solutions, innovative solutions, and optimizing the value creation across your capitals, human resources, funding, and communicating this relevance of value creation throughout the whole business and also globally from that. And it also puts you on a map from a brand perspective and marketing perspective that you are able to communicate this value creation that you're addressing a societal need, and your customers are there available to actually hear about this, and it puts you more onto the map. And from managing complexity imposed, if you can see this from a reporting perspective, you're able to manage complexities, identify the risks, and address these and mitigate these risks and appropriately. And then informing and challenging institutional, by reporting and understanding and strategizing, you challenge the traditional institutional practices. You can add to new existing framework, add to academia, offer business education and government. So looking at the change in business, and this is quite essential. So I've got this from the Future Fit business benchmark. Future Fit is an organization. You can find them on the web. They do benchmarking in terms of how Future Fit your company is and benchmarks you to the standard and where you are in shifting your business to a societal impact phase. So when we look at from a business perspective, we're in 2020 and things have changed drastically over the year from Industry 1.0, 2.0, 3.0 to Industry 4.0. Things have changed. People have changed. People's mindsets have changed. Entrepreneurs' mindsets have changed. We are all about society now because we have done away with financial returns. When we look at shareholder value, they always prioritize on gains and externalize losses. Even though you come to a shared value, which I touched on earlier, is that even though you look at your environment, society, and now we're implementing the business in the shared value, they always put the business first, and negative impacts often are not sufficiently internalized, but they feel that they are still doing some good, but it's actually elsewhere and externalized. But now it comes to where we are now in 2020 and going into forward, things have changed. So we look at from a system value perspective, businesses address societal needs in a very holistic way, integrated way, because all the SDGs and societal needs are all integrated. One influences the other. And when we drill down into the Future Fit goals, we look at global challenges. You need to have your system conditions in place where science-based definition of how society must operate. You have your business principles in place to understand how you must operate to be a truly sustainable society. And this lends itself to Future Fit goals, where we look from your system value, drive straight into performance thresholds, where every company must reach to help society's transition. And it's going that way. And this leads to your business benefits. And if I can really show the shift, is that there are limited resources, limited, and businesses are carrying actual capacity these days. But when we look at now how things are changing, is that now the customer comes into the picture. Because yes, we are driving a societal impact, but what about the customer in terms of their long-term? Customers' needs are changing and customer goals are changing. If we look at Industry 3.0 to Industry 4.0, customers have so much power in their hands that they can actually not buy a product, but essentially buy another substitute product. They have that power to do research, go on social media, ask for feedback. But now things have changed in Industry 4.0 and going on to 5.0. is that customers are looking for more, want to be part of a purpose. They have those goals, they have a journey that they want to fulfill. They want to be, helping the world. There's a shift for climate change, for example. A lot of people, individuals, are wanting a purpose. So now, how do companies use their performance and help with the society's transition is to assist customers on their journey. And it's a cycle. You help customers in terms of a societal need or societal, and helping them in their journey, and it feeds back into your system value, where you are addressing these needs, and this is where you are sustainable in terms of a business, because you are helping your customer, and by helping them on their journey, you're engaging more with your customer and bringing in more business for your company, while also addressing a social need. So I'm going to look at the importance of entrepreneurship very quickly. And looking at entrepreneurship is very close to my heart, and I'm very passionate about entrepreneurship. But really, when you look at it from an economic perspective, it accelerates economic growth. New customer entrepreneurs bring out new products. They're innovative. They contribute to new jobs and opportunities, and they use existing resources by optimizing it. Because when you look at startups, they're very cost conscious. Right? Some startups don't have the required capital. So what they do, they become more cost effective, and they actually look for the most innovative, cost efficient way to roll out products, and a lot of research goes in that. And when we look at, I know I'm from South Africa, but because I'm working with the Indian economy, I've pulled out some stats from the SME economy in terms of India. And when we look at the small to medium enterprises in India, there's 51 million SMEs across the country. And how it contributes in accelerating growth is that they generate employment for 120 million people. They contribute to 38% of GDP growth. And a lot of that, 40% of that goes out to exports. And that really drives global competition for the country. It adds to the economy, economic growth. And when we look at this figures from 2016, there was a compound annual growth of around 20% in terms of how the economy did back in 2016. And this was attributed to the SMEs bringing all this economic growth within the country, sorry. And this is really phenomenal. And this, we cannot rely too many on corporates, multinationals. A lot of multinationals that come in, yes, they do create jobs within the country, but most of this revenue is actually leaving the country to either the headquarters or the point of presence. So looking at the importance of entrepreneurship, really great in modernizing the infrastructure that's relevant today in terms of when we're meeting the SDG goals. They bring out new technologies, it's new innovation, utilize existing resources in new efficient ways. As I mentioned before, resources are limited. They're very cost conscious, so they actually go out in a cost efficient way to bring out new technologies. And they improve either new enterprises or existing enterprises. And because they're so innovative, it makes it very competitive that they need to be at this innovative, bring in this innovative layer. So in terms of promoting research and development, they cultivate ideas, they form collaboration and partnerships, which is really key, because a lot of companies, in terms of forming partnerships, really work together and bring out new ideas and creative ideas. And through support, the best ideas are cultivated. And as I mentioned, promotes innovation, solving problems, bringing new ventures and products to markets and technologies. And really, they are more agile. They're more agile than corporates. Corporates, a lot of red tape, bring out releases to product innovation in the market. But also in terms of corporates are now following this entrepreneurship lifestyle in terms of they're opening business units to roll out more innovative, so they can actually be more competitive in the market. So when we look at the business units, it's entrepreneurship because it's an internal division within a holding company or corporate company. And they are really, I've worked for FNB, and they had an innovation department, which is very entrepreneurial in nature. And FNB is one of the largest banks and very technology advanced in South Africa. And phenomenal stuff actually came out from there in terms of innovation. And also in terms of rewards, giving back to the employees, giving them the chance to bring innovation to this platform. And last but not least, promotes social changes. And this is really improving the lifestyle, generous thinking, better morale in terms of gender equality, equality for all, and giving higher economic choice. So let's touch on the social impact that in the previous slide. And this is where really the crux of social entrepreneurship comes from. When we relate this and link it back to the Sustainable Development Goals, really entrepreneurship is formulated from the Sustainable Development Goals 4. And when we look at target 4.4 in that Sustainable Development Goal, it says by 2030, substantial increase in the number of youth and adults. We have relevant skills, including technical and vocational skills, employment, decent jobs, and entrepreneurship. I mean, it's quite a big, it's quite an important aspect to be included in this Sustainable Development Goal, because they realize this, that's the benefits of this. And when we look at from a decent work and economic perspective, that's where job creation comes from, where Sustainable Development Goal looks at, and target 8.3, where it calls for the promotion and development of policies to support productive capacities, decent job creation, entrepreneurship, creativity, innovation, and encourage formulation and growth in small to medium enterprises through accessing of services. And those are the key. And one of my mentees that I discussed with, and she works for one of the top 4 auditing firms, and she's very heavily involved in Sustainable Development Goals. And she mentioned that the quickest wins, and she deals with all these companies, that the quickest wins is to get, from an entrepreneur's perspective, is to get involved in quality education, and also in terms of decent work and economic growth and job creation. And a lot of funding is supported provided to entrepreneurs to address this. So other goals that I've been familiar with, and also in terms of touching on companies that are in South Africa that are involved in, is a lot of food, in terms of food security, security in terms of from a social security perspective, climate change, very big thing, education, as I just mentioned, healthcare, another huge element, especially in South Africa, and particularly in India, as I'll show you some stats, and sanitation and water. I will go through a specific research that I've done in a community. I will use that as a use case for the Sustainable Development Goal 6. And gender equality, very big thing. We are struggling in South Africa with a lot of gender-based violence, and women in business, and women equality, and entrepreneurs, and really promoting these things, and doing away with gender-based violence, and really focusing on women and our kids, and also getting the youth involved in entrepreneurship. And reliable sources of energy. We actually moving now to renewable sources of energy, because our grid, in terms of our main electricity and utility supplier, cannot maintain the grid effectively. So we are looking at other sources that a lot of entrepreneurs can get involved in. So I'd just like to use 2 examples that are pulled out from the UN, and I'll touch on in terms of how entrepreneurship can address this. From the Sustainable Development Goal 9, the industry, innovation, and infrastructure. We look at focus on building resilient infrastructure, promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization, and fostering innovation. So, and one key is that we are assisting Central African Republic with foreign direct investment. And the key there is bringing in more. They just came out of the war. So they want to uplift the economy, bring the company back into the thriving economy it was. And when we look at that perspective, there's utility, low-cost housing, telecoms, there's mining, gold, and in terms of getting foreign direct investment will boost job creation, will boost the infrastructure requirements. And goal number 17, another example, is very close to my heart, because I really believe in collaboration. I believe in entrepreneurs that should collaborate and leverage off each one's skills and strengths, and what we can bring to the table. And competition is outdated now. I feel it's outdated, because when we go into the future, it's all about collaboration. How can we both move together for the common good? And when we look at partnerships, it's effective public, private, and civil society partnerships. And this is getting really everyone involved, from tertiary, from government, private, to residential and society, to get involved in all this and addressing the goals and contribute to achieve multiple targets and assisting and just creating that one achievement and one goal. So let's look at the guy on the top that was right on the top. Let's look at his personality. When we look at from an entrepreneurial perspective and how we achieve these goals, you have to be aware of a traditional entrepreneur and a social entrepreneur. And the personality traits of these very, very distinctively. Where we look at the social entrepreneur, they maximize on social value, social capital from non-profit pursuits to solve social problems. Traditional entrepreneur, yes, it's all about growth. We get those eagles, the sales, scaling and growth. But sometimes it could be a lifestyle entrepreneur. And this is why I always discuss with my entrepreneurs first. What type of entrepreneur do you believe that you are? And this really filters down from what you think you are, your purpose in life, to where you want to be in terms of you yourself and your business. Because lifestyle entrepreneurs, yes, they're good, they can scale, they create jobs, they create profits, but at the end of the day, they're happy with their Ferraris, they're happy with their mansions, and that's it. They're living a lifestyle. Whereas a social entrepreneur, yes, you can have a profitable social entrepreneur, but what that social entrepreneur does is, let's use that profits to diversify, to look for other challenges and pump money from profits into those developing entrepreneurs and scaling the growth. And when we look at that, we can clearly see the difference. It's a lifestyle motivated by financial gain, social entrepreneur motivated by social gain, highly innovative, creative, lower levels of self-interest. It's all about not the individual, not that I want my Ferrari, it's for me, I want the mansion, but it's also for everyone. I want everyone to share this wealth that I'm achieving. And higher levels of social conscious, high levels of risk-taking. And yes, they are quite extroverted traits that an entrepreneur who seeks personal and shareholder gain, which goes back to motivated by financial gain, high levels of self-interest, going back to the lifestyle, and low levels of social conscience, because we just worry about the money and we don't care whatever happens to the environment or whatever happens. And the oil companies have been blasted for this for many years, and that's what's filtered down. I'll put some nice comments on the side. Hopefully you guys had a chance to read that. And it's really by prominent entrepreneurs who really think a lot about how the world is changing and why it's critical that social entrepreneurs address sustainable development goals in our new generation and driving towards achieving, say, sustainable development goals. I will share this presentation later if you guys want to do a bit more reading. Okay. Right, so in terms of business drivers, and I've spoken this earlier, and it's really about combining all three of these things. You as an entrepreneur and the importance of an entrepreneur, and then looking at you as from a business perspective, what are your societal needs? How do you carry capacity? How do you assist your customer's journey? And looking at yourself from the importance from perspective, how are you driving economic growth, research and development, innovation, social changes, and incorporating that with your reporting. And essentially this is embedding the social change and social aspects into your business, where you are able to report and see where are the value that you're creating, how are you solving the complexity and informing and strategizing, identifying risk and opportunities and identifying solutions. So it's really, this is your business driver, is that you want to drive economic growth, you want to have social change, you want to be innovative and addressing societal needs, and then bringing this all together by reporting and understanding what are the risks and what are the opportunities, and how can you actually go about bringing yourself into the market and marketing yourself as in this particular role, while also providing the necessary detail from a sustainable development goal perspective and adding to the world data, if I can say. And this is really now more for for the entrepreneurs here who would love me as a mentor. And this is how I generally work. And one of the questions is that was sent to me was, how does the design thinking really work in terms of assisting, bringing out innovative products for sustainable development goals? So let's start. Do you spot an opportunity? And the models that we use are generally really out there, and frameworks really prove successful. There's the lean startup I have on the right, and the lean startup generally gets to your minimum viable product that you're leaning out, and you want to get to your minimum viable product, and at a later stage, add more features to it. And this is core, and this is what I'm heavily involved in terms of the Alan Gray Orbis Foundation, is the ideation, validation, and creation framework. And really, this is getting your idea, designing it, and really validating this idea, going out, getting at least surveying customers, serving the market, finding what their needs are, what the societal needs. And then really the creation is that, yes, we're creating this prototype, we have the business requirements, and how do we really now take this to the market? And when you go linking back to design thinking, it's really about your ideation phase. And design thinking can be implemented in all phases of your lean startup, in your ideation, validation, and creation. And it's really about empathizing. And why empathize is about customers will buy your products on emotion. You can have a brand, but your brand is not about your logo. It's not about the colors of your business. Your brand is how your customer perceives you. So how are you meeting? How are you providing a value to your customer in terms of what are the emotions that you're addressing? What is the specific need? You define that need. And I'll explain the design thinking process by using the double diamond approach, which I used in a research study, and I'll use that as a use case. And you ideate and you prototype and you keep testing it within your market until you finally get the full business spec and launching it out to the market. So this is me, and how I really work with my entrepreneurs is, look, what is the motivation? If you're looking back at your sustainable development goals, read through it, understand it. What SDG problem are you passionate about? And you must be passionate. And as I explained earlier, what type of entrepreneur are you? Are you a social impact? Are you a lifestyle entrepreneur? Because this really influences you in the future. And I always ask that question first. And then looking at your understanding your why, and your why is really your purpose. And this really ties in to what type of entrepreneur you are. And I love Simon Sinek's, Simon, S-I-M-O-N and S-I-N-E-K. I love Simon Sinek's approach to his understanding the why and what you do and how you do it, but really it lends to your purpose. And then from a startup phase, your vision and mission, understanding clearly, it boils down to your problem statement. From a vision and mission, a holistic perspective that you're giving to the market. You actually do a 5 why technique, which is really your root cause analysis. Because if you are solving a problem that's not really defined by the root cause, you're actually going to address it by a solution that's really going to blow out of proportion. So really your root cause analysis. Then you identify from that root cause, what is the value proposition, and it lends itself to the business model canvas. And I'll take my entrepreneurs through the business model canvas in very much detail, because you look at your value proposition, who your target market is, who your relationships with the target markets, what is the business requirements after that, and then how do you get the key activities that are defined from your business requirements. And then you take these and then you validate it with your customers. You get feedback on this, and then you prototype it and you launch the product. And then from that perspective, you can expand. Then you look at sustainability, continued impact, and future plans. Sorry, I can't see the message. Sorry about that. I'm just going to move this. I'm just going to continue. Just let me know if I'm running out of time, and I'll try and speed up. But here's a use case. And this is really the research study that I was involved in. And I really looked at what the research was looking at the Sustainable Development Goal 6, which is on water and sanitation. And as I mentioned before, we use a double diamond design framework. And when we look at 6, we looked at target indicator 6B. And that really looked at community engagement and participation in the delivery of water projects in South Africa. And what we found from there was that from a community, we looked at a specific community, and that community gave us a perspective. We did research around it. We looked at our markets and really analyzed the findings from what we achieved from the customers or the water delivery. Water service was atrocious, right? People were still using pit toilets. Sanitation levels and it was very unhygienic, and water delivery. There was times where trucks had to be delivered, but even though it didn't have time, in terms from a municipality, we looked at it from two perspectives, the community and the municipality perspective. From a municipality perspective, there was a lot of corruption. The service delivery wasn't being done from a water perspective. And basically, it was infuriating and frustrating the community. There's a lot of more findings that we found on that perspective. You guys can chat to me if you're more curious around what those detailed findings were. So what we did was we discovered, if you look at the diamond double, we look at the discover phase, then we look at the define phase, where we brainstormed, we took the findings, we brainstormed solutions and what we came about. We put the solution into a business model canvas. We did a revenue and costing model, feasibility and viability test, and what the marginal benefits for the customers. So what we did was we formed an intermediary company that would be that would actually incorporate an incubation hub. So an intermediary company would assist the government or municipality on the delivery of services, of water services. And also the incubation hub will actually bring out from a training, an SME and entrepreneurship development that can also assist and create jobs and develop entrepreneurs. And then from a citizen services management system is really for the citizens, where they see a fault, where they can actually access reports on water services management. And this is really an integration of all three, and it's encompassed by the app that really provides feedback, and it connects to the municipality and the government. So that's what we actually proposed and rolled out. And the last thing that we did was that we did a stakeholder testing where we had a focus group. We called the traditional council. We spoke to the people in high positions within there, and we called residents. What do you guys think about the solution? And what feedback can we get? And all in all, they loved the solution. They loved and they gave very great feedback in terms of improving the solution that we did. And now we're ready actually to roll out this particular solution. And thus, we're going to incorporate the integrated report and that we can feedback into the Sustainable Development Goal 6, Target 6B. So this is just an example of how you can actually get yourself and identify problems and solutions and really getting yourself entrenched in the market and identifying what is actually occurring within communities on Sustainable Development Goals. Cool, and last but not least is the role of government. And sorry for the heavy text here, but this is really a policy to enhance entrepreneurship within SDGs. And key is that government must get involved. And if we look at statistics around India, so severe problems with gender equality, 26 out of 28 states. Severe problems with healthcare, 6 out of 28. And in terms of severe problems with housing, 13 out of 28 states, severe problems. Severe problems, extreme poverty, 14 states. 20 states with severe hunger problems. And I mean, gender equality is such a major issue. And we look at severe hunger as also one of the major issues. And so it's things like this that we need to identify and what's the social impact that we can actually address with these. So looking at government needs to integrate into national entrepreneurship strategies, build regulatory environment for green and social entrepreneurs, really focus on empowering women and equal rights, integrate social and green into education systems and curricula, innovation, financial. So really speak to make financial arrangements for those who are actually social and green entrepreneurs, give them less lending percentage on their lending rates and loans, encourage crowdfunding and really promote women and entrepreneurs and youth entrepreneurs, establish accelerators and incubators, and which is AIC right now actually doing, and in support with the government of India. Very great stuff. And this is what we need, is that government needs to see this and really push and identify that entrepreneurship is really key for establishing and achieving these goals. And really promote inclusive entrepreneurship networks, because it's about collaboration. It's about sharing. It's about working together for the common good. And key is also women and youth. Drive that entrepreneurship in terms of women and youth, and promoting mentoring, and with the focus of women and youth is also, and this is why I'm here, this is my purpose, mentoring and being involved from a government perspective. I really want to get more involved also from a curriculum perspective, addressing the education sector in South Africa. I have very good ideas in terms of from a 4IR perspective and how the syllabus could change. And that's the government policy that they need to bring about. So in terms of concluding remarks, this is what I recommend to my entrepreneurs and who I'm actually going to mentor, is keep this in mind. Find your purpose. The best thing you can do is really understand your purpose. What are you driving? What is your social impact that you bring? What are you passionate about? And then embed this within your organization from the start. Embed social entrepreneur. I'm going to use technology perspective, is that when we look at Google and when we look at Microsoft, Google really started as a data culture company. And this is why they got their data maturity right, where they can market so well, where they can do analytics so well, and where they know every single bit about every division of their business. If you can embed a social impacts in your business, it will really help you be a sustainable business in the long term. And keep innovating, come up with ideas, research, speak to other entrepreneurs, speak to your mentors, speak to your coaches, and ask for advice. And it's all about value creation. It's about, yes, you have a problem, but what value can you create for a societal need to a person? And going back to your collaboration and partnership, very key. I love collaboration. I love collaborating with other entrepreneurs and really driving a social need. And the key also that's embedded with your organization from the start is get used to the reporting and feed in and contribute to a larger cause in your business, and also from a larger perspective in your to a global perspective. And that's my presentation for today. I hope you guys enjoyed that and got a glimpse of the role and importance of entrepreneurship and how we align it. And thank you, everyone. That's me. And any questions?
Thank you, Mohan. Thanks for the wonderful, thought-provoking insights and inputs on entrepreneurship, and about how we can leverage entrepreneurship as a tool towards achieving SDG to make the entire world a better place. Of course, we have a few questions in the Q&A column. The first question is from Smita Mishra. Hi, Mohan. Great session. Thanks for the compliment, Smita. So her question is about, at what stage do you suggest startups and SMBs to adopt focus on SDG, especially considering there is no regulatory requirement for them to do so? At what stage startups and SMBs should adopt SDG?
Yeah, so the stage is really ideation stage. So if you're a startup and you're not really pivoting, so I would say start from the beginning. And that really influences your problem statement in terms of what you are addressing, and you understand the problem better, and you can actually drive with that in terms of going forward and creating sustainability in the business. So from a startup perspective, ideation phase, absolutely, because you're actually going to really create a sustain, if I can say, a culture. You're gonna if you're addressing the societal need and the culture. And really even from ideation, when you look at from a funding perspective, a lot of companies, especially venture capital, and I'm talking from a South Africa perspective, I'm still yet to find out more in India. They always go for those who are in a growth stage and those who are really from, because they look for revenue and profit. What can I get out of this? What is my return on investment? But when you look at the funding from a social development perspective or sustainable development, there are grants. If you come up with a proper business idea and in the ideation stage, there are grants. There's really companies out there that actually contribute funding to get your idea, where in the form of grants. Government can provide this in the form of grants. Associate yourself with various incubators that can actually assist you in delivering on this and gaining. And also from that perspective, even though in the ideation state, from a startup perspective, there's competitions that you can run. SeedStars, I'm aware, is also run a lot of competitions where ideation can also go through and win funding to start this particular business. But I know that from my experience is that from a social development goals perspective, if you're addressing it from an idea perspective stage, you will get the attention. So I definitely say start from an idea stage. Yeah.
Thank you, Morgan. And we have another question from Mr. Ranjit Kumar. It's about the type of benefits or kinds of support systems from UN for startups and ventures that are focusing on SDG related problem statements across the world.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm not too in terms of that. I know the World Development Bank in partnership with the US UN. There's a lot of funding structures. I know that there's financial bonds perspective that are actually that give you the attributed to providing for the financial aid to get your to support you on your SDG journey. And also there are partnerships with various governments that also have an agenda to develop this. So they actually partner with governments in addressing this and establishing the entrepreneurial a base. But I can't comment further on that. I can get more research, but there's a lot of information in terms of the partners that are available on the UN website. I really love the UN website in terms of how they did a phenomenal job in terms of providing the information that's out there, from getting partners to getting affiliates and giving this type of information out. Yeah.
So another question from Tony Alapat. Shed some light on data collection against SDG indicators and how to do it efficiently. Okay.
So the detail really is, so in terms of data collection is really comes from your reporting stage. It's really from a data analytics perspective. You have your Excel spreadsheets and raw data that you collect from addressing the sustainable development goals, and also from a research perspective, what secondary research is available, and also primary research that feeds in to these particular indicators that you are addressing. And if you look at the UN website, you can actually download metadata from there to have a view of what type of information that they actually collect from an indicator perspective that they address. And you can filter it by countries, you can filter it by continents, and get an actually aggregated view of what's currently happening in specific industries, in specific SDGs. And that's data is available for manipulation, actually, in terms of how you can collect that data from the UN website. And you can also go out and do your own surveys according to what the data IDs and collections are, and sort of do some analytics around that and provide statistics in terms of identifying the risks, identifying the opportunities, where the gaps are lying, and where are you actually now in your SDGs, and where do you need to be, and what does the data currently say? So a lot of information is available on the UN site, and it's up for manipulation as raw data. Yes, and if you need assistance around from an analytical perspective, I'll be more than glad to assist in that perspective. Yeah.
Thank you, Morgan. And we have another question in the chat box from Mr. Lahan. It's about, is the emotion connection of a company to the customer is only based on the product or the social message which is embedded along with the product? How it should happen?
Yes. So the social, the emotional component is the actual need that the customer requires. So the product needs to address that specific need. So it comes from your identifying the problem statement, then identifying the value proposition in terms of my customer is going to give up his hard-earned cash for this product. What am I going over and beyond than taking his cash? Is it that I'm delivering not just the product, but what is the emotional aspect that I'm addressing? I'll give you an example from that perspective is that we are essential service. My telecoms company worked during lockdown because we're essential services and we provided from a customer perspective. And we actually identified that it required me to be on the customer premises, right? And not just so when I went to the customer premises, I understood what my employees did and what the customer's pain points were. I understood what their pain points were, what were their goals. And from that, I got the emotional aspect and their needs and understanding it. And I'll give you an example from a technical perspective. In South Africa, some companies really deploy fiber technology, connection, internet connectivity from 7 to 2 weeks. We brought that from understanding the customer's emotions and process. We brought that process down to 2 to 5 days. And really that emotion that we gave feedback that we really addressed their needs and that emotional burden, that convenience, we made it more convenient for the customer. And that's the emotion that we need. And now they trust us. And that trust went to word of mouth, where people started talking about our companies and addressing their convenience and their trust. And so it really has to come from your problem statement that you're addressing, then your value proposition, because your product is just a tool. A product is just a tool or service that you're addressing that particular need at the end of the day.
Done. And with the interest of time, so we have the final question again from Smita Mishra. It's about most sustainability assessment exercises seem to have sustainability reports as the end deliverable. Do you suggest the report to be a particular framework like GRI, SASB, TCFD, PRI, or a simple collection of all business processes and sustainable practices and actions listed along it would be sufficient? So she's just asking about the assessment exercises of sustainability.
Yeah. So in terms of assessment exercises, it's really how do you meet the sustainable development objectives? And yes, it could be a simple assessment, but really follow the methodology in terms of what the UN is actually seeking and really delivering on those objectives. And then define from the assessment perspective, what are the risks and what are the opportunities on that regard? And then, developing appropriately your processes and risk mitigation strategies and identifying what gaps can you fill from that. So definitely, yes, you can do a very good assessment, very high level assessment. And even so, from a high level mapping perspective, if you look from a mapping perspective in terms of objectives, you can see how the UN does it. So I really would suggest meeting the objectives of what the UN Sustainable Development Goals is trying to achieve, and then do your assessments based on that methodology and strategy and frameworks that they propose.
So thank you, Mohan. That was a wonderful session. We are very happy to have you with us today, and very happy to have you also as one of the mentor of AIC RAISE. And thanks for expressing your interest to join our mentor pool, for supporting our startups which are working around various UN SDG and social impact centric problem statements in India. And looking forward to have more of your thought-provoking inputs, insights, and energies to pump in a lot of energy to our startups to help them to scale, to help them to scale globally. Thank you once again, Mugen. Thank you once again to all the participants for spending your time with us today. Hope you had a wonderful takeaway. And in the chat box, yeah, we have shared our feedback form. Please feel free to share your feedback about this session with our feedback form so that we can enhance our upcoming sessions as well. Thank you so much. Thank you, Morgan. We'll catch you all around in another set of SDG Impact Series webinar. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks, yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you.
Great. Cheers. Okay. Should I stay to chat maybe to the entrepreneurs or?
Yeah. Most of them have shared about their questions.
Okay. Oh, that's fine then.
since we have planned for a couple of mentoring session with you with our startups.
Sure.
The startups onboarded into the incubation program. We have 40 plus startups. So we are planning for a rapid fire kind of a mentoring session with you in maybe next week based on your availability.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a rapid fire session initially to know about the mentor startup fit happening, and then we are planning for a one-on-one mentoring session. So everything based on your schedules and availability. Yeah.
Not a
So
problem.
yeah, Abhin and myself will be getting back to you regarding the mentoring session for the startups. So we're just working on the schedules. So I'll do one thing. I'll share the startup details with you today. So you can also go through the list of startups we have, and we can talk again regarding the mentoring session part.
Great stuff. All right. Thanks, Dinesh.
Thank
So will you share the recording as well, if you don't mind?
Yeah, I'll share you the recording as well. I'm going to upload it to the YouTube, and I'll share you the YouTube link as well.
Okay. Thanks. Cheers, everyone. Have a good day.
Thank you, Morgan. Thank you so much.